Talking with the experts.
In episode 285, I speak with Virginia Walker about thriving on purpose and how to lead and live life on your terms.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know, maybe your listeners have experienced teams that are, what you might call a frontline team. So you've got people who work with clients or they work with customers, and then you've got the head office team, you've got the admin team, and they can be quite small, but there's often this little theme, which is actually the drama triangle between people with the customer facing roles, the client facing roles, and those that do the admin. And it goes something like this: those people they just don't know how to do this. They never get this right. They don't fill in this form correctly. They don't dot their I's and cross the T's, whatever. I guess I'll have to do it for them. Yeah. So that plays out in the head office language, but there's no conversation that's gone on. It's just that's not with the people concerned, just with other people in head office, right? Or in admin stuff. And then the people on the front line go, these people in head office, what do? They sit around.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And I wanted to ask you this question. Are you a good leader? Do you thrive in life on your terms, or are the terms of life challenging you a little bit? Our businesses and our teams are a reflection of how we show up as leaders, and we need the tools to grow our skills and our confidence so that we can build teams and live life on our terms to be able to grow and thrive on purpose. And my next guest, Virginia Walker, is going to explain to us those very facts. And Virginia is a mentor, coach, speaker, and author. She is passionate about enabling leaders to foster workplaces where people learn, grow, and thrive. Using her experiences from a 4-decade career in the war zone of transformational change, Virginia loves using stories to share her insights. In 2018, she embraced an opportunity to apply her leadership skills to the successful turnaround of an organisation in the not-for-profit sector, and is now developing talks and programs based on the added insights she has gained. Welcome, Virginia, and thank you so much for joining me. And I would love to learn how to lead and live life on my terms.
Good. Hello, Rose. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I guess for a start, just please tell us how we can learn to, live life on our own terms rather than being dictated by others.
So I guess in my experience, it's been quite a long journey. I started work at the age of 16, left school and started working in an accounting office. And, I'm now got a 6 in front of my age. So there's been a lot of working years there and a lot of lessons to learn in terms of leadership and also how to personally to live the life that you want to live. So in recent years, in the last decade, that has meant leading a 30-year marriage. I've moved into state. And as you said in the introduction, that was actually to come to Queensland to head up a not-for-profit disability services provider, where I learned that all those lessons that I had experienced during a corporate career, combined with the coaching programs that I had undertaken since leaving the corporate world, could come together so that I could both lead in a way that was compassionate, but also meant that the business was commercially viable. And then the final icing on the cake was then learning to put myself first, to then spend time on myself and to come to grips with what I really wanted. And that has been, I guess, kind of one of the final pieces of the jigsaw for me. And I have met a new partner, and it is a very wonderful relationship, really, really incredibly supportive and a lot of fun. And that I feel that I can now talk with some experience and passion around not only leading, but also living life on your own terms.
It's very important that we learn to, I guess, love ourselves before others can love us. And that's what they keep telling us anyway. So I'm not quite sure if that's true. I'm pretty sure that it is. How do we learn to do that if we've lived a life of, self-denial?
No, it's a great question, Rose. I think I'll talk in terms of some of the parts of my story that may help explain that. The eye-opening explanation that I experienced a number of years ago was when someone explained the drama triangle to me. It's called the drama triangle, and it's a piece of research that goes back quite some years now. It talks about that we are often in a relationship with other human beings where we are either the victim, and we feel things being done to us by someone else, and we kind of can label them the perpetrator or the aggressor, or we're a rescuer. And so we love helping people who are in victim, so things are happening to them, and they seem to have really bad breaks and everything is not right, and they need someone to fix it for them. Right? And I realized I had lived my life, being proud of being a rescuer. Like that was my badge of honor, and that's not uncommon. And so the insight was that you can actually step outside that. You can step out. That mindfulness that means you're aware of the fact that you are in this kind of relationship with someone or many people maybe, and that you have a choice. You have a choice of stepping outside that triangle or that circle and observing it and deciding what you want to do and deciding what behavior that you want to take. And that became particularly important from a business perspective when we were making losses. We were looking after people living with disabilities. And so there are a lot of people that needed our help. There were a lot of issues, and it was very easy to be a rescuer at many, many levels for me, my team. And so the only way to steer through this was to step outside and say, well, what's really going on? What are the facts of the situation? What can we do that is a balance, is a compassionate balance of the things that we need to do and want to do. So we want to live our purpose, but let's do it in a way that means we stay in business, that we stay in with good relationships with each other and our clients, and that we balance those facts all the time, and we don't see ourselves as things being done to us, and that we have to blame other people, and that we have to save them from doing themselves. So the first step was to recognize that sort of relationship is very typical for us as human beings to have with other people. And step one is to recognize it, because if you don't recognize it, you can't possibly do anything about it. And even when you recognize it, you may need some help in order to learn the tools and techniques to be present and think of other ways of dealing with the situation rather than the patterns that we fall into.
Yeah, they're very, very great points, Virginia. I was wondering, but as a leader, how can you, I guess, foster those same principles in a team?
Yeah, it's another great question. I have found forever, and I think it's one of the most probably difficult aspects of leadership is that what you do is what your team will do. So they will look at what you do. You can say anything you like. You can encourage them to do anything you like. You can give them goals. You can do things. But if you're not practicing those behaviors yourself, you will never get them in your team, because that's not how it works with leadership. And so the first thing to do is to practice that. And what you find is that what you practice is then easier for your team to practice. But you also have to have conversations. You also have to call it out. So we had, so when I was working with this particular leadership team, we had an external coach that we used to work with for at least half a day once a month. And we talked about where we felt that we were not taking responsibility for ourselves and our teams, and not taking responsibility for the behaviours that were necessary for us to do what we wanted to do. And those conversations were the powerful ones. So those conversations where it wasn't about criticising, and it wasn't about blaming, and it wasn't about any kind of punishment or anything like that. It was a conversation that says, why is this so difficult? Why are we finding this so difficult? Why is this situation particularly challenging? What's going on? What help, what support, what resources do you need as an individual, as teams, to do something different, to behave differently?
It's all very important, and you made a very good statement about taking responsibility for your actions, for your choices. No one can be responsible for you except for you.
Brilliantly said.
And if you choose to be a twat, well then that's a choice that you make. But don't push your twatness on somebody else.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know, maybe your listeners have experienced teams that are, what you might call a frontline team. So you've got people who work with clients, or they work with customers, and then you've got the head office team, you've got the admin team, and they can be quite small, but there's often this little theme, which is actually the drama triangle between people with the customer facing roles, the client facing roles, and those that do the admin. And it goes something like this: those people they just don't know how to do this. They never get this right. They don't fill in this form correctly. They don't dot their I's and cross the T's, whatever. I guess I'll have to do it for them. Yeah. So that plays out in the head office language, but there's no conversation that's gone on. It's just, that's not with the people concerned, just with other people in head office, right? Or in admin stuff. And then the people on the front line go, these people in head office, what do? They sit around all day making up forms for us to fill in just to keep themselves in jobs. And, I don't have time for this kind of thing. I've got more important things. I've got clients, I've got customers that I need to look after. And that dialogue is never with each other's teams. And so one of the things that we did was force that dialogue, create, and I don't mean force in a
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
In an ugly way. I mean, as in, we created environments where that dialogue took place, that looked at processes from a client point of view and said, okay, let's just step our way through what happens when a client contacts us, all the way through to when we provide services to them. What does that look like? And there were these aha moments of like, wow, I didn't realize that was needed, or that didn't happen. And oh my goodness, I didn't realize you did the same thing as me in that role. And so those conversations were magical, frankly. I love listening to them, these jaw-dropping moments of insight of that they're part of this bigger ecosystem rather than the role that they do every day. And those sorts of techniques as a leader are where you get the powerful breakthroughs, is where you can start to have your team do the things that you want them to do, because the insight is there. They understand why that would matter, why that would make sense, and why often people want to get things right for clients. They just don't know how.
Yeah, communication is, number one priority in any situation, whether it's a two-person team, or a 200,000 person conglomerate. Yeah. Communication between departments, between managers, between CEOs or whatever, that's so important to get the perspective of the others. because you're quite right. I worked in an organisation, although it was a government one, so, you know, opportunity for conversation wasn't as open as it would be in a private one. However, you know, the same situations apply. Head office would send us all these terrible forms to fill out, and we'd fill them out, you know, based on the information that we had, and then we get, you know, well, we'd get feedback, well, you know, can't you do your job? You know, aren't you whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, you know, you haven't told us exactly what information you want. We've just filled out the form based on the information that we have.
Yes.
Yeah. So within our little office, you know, that it worked, but yeah, you try and get head office or like, you know, Canberra to listen, that they just thought we were idiots. But
no, it's fascinating. I mean, you know, it's that old saying, isn't it? Assuming makes an ass of you and me. So it's like
yes.
It's this assumption that people know what's expected, that they understand, that they have the same information that you do. And interesting enough, I mean, the thing that fascinated me was even when people do have the same information as you, they still won't necessarily come to the same conclusions.
No, because
so we're different.
It's an individual perception. I mean, you know, one, the law enforcement agency that I worked for, you know, one person would interpret the act in one way, and another person had, because of the words that were used and their own personal perceptions, it was interpreted, you know, slightly differently.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there'd be some discussion about what was the intent.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
The English language is an amazing thing, but it is absolutely open to interpretation.
Absolutely. So I guess to be able to thrive on purpose and to lead and live a life on the terms that we want, rather than being dictated to by other people, what steps can you know, we as individuals take?
Yeah, what steps? I think the first one is that awareness. So the first step, as I've mentioned, is that awareness of realizing what is it that you're expecting of others. What are you letting them expect of you? Yeah, so because that's that communication. It's about setting expectations for yourself and others. And if you fundamentally know, that sounds like such a couple of throwaway lines, but the reality is, to do that takes a fair bit of being mindful of being aware of what you're doing and when you're doing it, when you're not doing it. But as you move through that journey of becoming like that, then you can make more choices. You make more choices about what you want. So living your life with your purpose, you know, there's a lot of, we probably won't go into it today, but working out what your purpose is most of us have spent some time going, why am I here? You know, why do I exist? What is that? And so there are a bunch of exercises you can do to find your purpose, and I'll circle back on that in a second, because it can be an interesting journey. And then, because that is your why all the time, so linking what you do with your purpose is important. Even if it's not a direct relationship, it needs to be involved, otherwise you lose motivation. And then working out, well, what am I prepared to trade for that? You know, what's the balance I want? So maybe I'll use a little bit of my own journey to explain that. So when I left school at 16, as I said, I started working in an accounting office, a chartered accounting office in the City of London. And I had left school because I needed to, because of family circumstances. And so my life was a little awkward at the time. It was a bit of a struggle. But I ended up in this place where the leaders were, they were mentors. They were natural mentors. They were funny, and everybody used to teach each other. You know, you learn something, then you teach the more junior people. And so we were all learning, growing, thriving, and having fun, right? I had no idea accounts were meant to be boring. None. Like, I just took years before I figured that out. And then I moved to Australia, you know, because I kind of wanted to grow up and do something different, bigger. And I got to find that many workplaces aren't like that. And so my passion became being a leader and a manager that could have the people who worked for me learn and grow and thrive, because I knew how much it meant to me, right? Because it wasn't just a trivial thing, it was a huge thing. It had changed my life. And then as I became more senior, I worked out there are very few people around who think like that. And so I kept working for people who didn't think like that, and they would use my ability to manage teams and get projects done, get extraordinary results, but I was dispensable. Yeah. And so I had to work out, as I did, probably at this point, I think I'm a slow learner because it took a long time. I had to work out that actually was me that were letting other people use my skills to do what they wanted. But I was still living my purpose. I just wasn't living life on my terms. And so when
I can empathize with that.
Yes. You can relate to that. Yes. And so we often know what our purpose is. It is the thing that we will do even when we're not paid for it, even when no one demands it of us. It's the thing we love to do. That is our purpose. So we generally know that if we spend some time looking at it, thinking about it. And so the missing link is often that, and are you doing that on your own terms? Are you doing it in a way that balances what you want out of life with contributing what you want to contribute to the world? And that is an exercise in self-awareness. That's another level, because you then have to work out, well, what patterns and blocks do you have that you have learned over usually your childhood or over your life, and you've ingrained them. And so to unlearn them or to learn different habits usually takes the assistance of a coach or a mentor to work to see what you can't see for yourself. Yeah, because that's usually the bit that is hard, because we're very good at observing other people. Well, it's so clear, isn't it, what other people are doing wrong? It's like watching a sport. Well, they could have hit a backhand there, they could have taken that goal there, they could have done, we can see it from the sidelines, but not so much when we're in the game. And so the same for us as individuals. We often need some help so that we can spend time in reflection and understand what we bring to the world and what we're good at. We're often blind to that too. And then the practices that are stopping us making the shifts that we want to get to that point of living life on our terms.
Yes, it is very important to live life on our own terms and not be, live like how other people would like us to live.
Absolutely.
Took me a long time to learn that as well. So yeah.
It's not
I'm on the other side of the 6 as well. So
yes, I think it's a rare thing to understand that early. It is life that teaches us that it is a journey. Life is a journey, and
it is. Yes. Now tell me, Virginia, I'd love to hear about your books.
Right, my books. Well, so I have written The Truth About Transformation, and that is it's very much the story or the learnings that came out of my corporate career, and it was the world of big transformational projects. So when organizations were doing cultural change, when they're introducing new products, significant new products, or when they were changing teams, anything along those lines. And so I had found over time, or all the industries were changing, and I'd found when I look back over my career, I'd always been in that world of transformational change. And so these are the 10 myths of that, it's like, well, that should happen, or that should happen this way. And I found the hard way that's not how it worked. And so this was the 10 myths, and then why we believe them, what I found worked instead. So that's that book. I also contributed to a book, The Better Future. It's going to escape me for the moment. Better Business, Better Life, Better World. And that's a B1G1 book. And it's advice that you would give to your grandkids about business and life. And it's got multiple authors. And B1G1 is an organization that is a platform so that businesses can contribute directly to projects that make a difference to people all around the world. And every cent of that donation goes straight to those projects. So, for example, giving people clean water, providing digital skills to Aboriginal communities, helping people, women have businesses, microloans for businesses, all like hundreds of projects. So I've contributed to that book. And then my third book is on the drawing board, but in a reconstructed stage at the moment. And it will be around Thrive on Purpose.
Is that being written through Speakers Tribe Publishing or?
Not at this point. I've started it. It's about 15,000 words in, and I'm adjusting who I'm writing it for. So it's sort of back on the drawing board and needs a bit of re-architecting.
Good stuff. Virginia, where can people find you if they would like to work with you?
Thank you, Rose. It's a great question. So my website is www.transformationjourney.com.au. And there will have all my contact details. I'd love to hear from you if you are talking anything personal or business transformation. It would be a pleasure to have a talk.
And I can vouch for Virginia. She is an absolute delight to work with. I know her through another organisation that we're both members of, and she is an absolute, I don't know, she's just so calm and kind, and she takes people on a journey of kindness and I don't know, and purpose. She does.
Thank you,
Virginia,
Rose.
you're welcome. Virginia, what final words have you got for our listeners and viewers today?
So in your own business, you will be experiencing how you show up as a leader. And so what you are seeing around you will be largely in part reflecting how you look after yourself and how you do things and how you treat yourself and how you treat others. So I would encourage you as a business leader to invest in self-care, to invest in meditation, to invest in reflection and gratitude. And you will find that it's much easier to then work out what's going on for other people and lead them to where you want to go.
Oh, very lovely words, Virginia. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. It's been a pleasure talking with you and learning more about how to live life on my terms and on everyone else's terms for them to live their life on their terms. I hope that you'll come and join me again sometime.
I hope so too, Rose. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.